Good evening, everyone, and welcome to what normally is the Joe and Joe Weather Show, but tonight it's minus one Joe. It's just me, Joe Chaffee, and the Joe and Joe Weather Show, just with Joe Chaffee, is brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. Winter is one day closer, and rock salt is what you may need, especially if you're in the snow removal business. Prices are high. Omni will have the best prices in the tri-state area. More importantly, they will have plenty of salt. They will have plenty of Pelledo and plenty of mag, ice, pellets, and flakes, and anything else you need to get through these winter months. 631-756-1125. Best prices in town. The website is omnitruevalue.com. Wholesale holiday lighting by Giannini. We're one day closer to Halloween and also one day closer to Christmas. They are your complete holiday lighting specialists, meeting all your decorating needs, whether it's for Halloween or for Christmas. I know the garland is in and the wreaths are in all sorts of big sizes, along with everything else to make your yard and your house look like the best decorated house in the neighborhood. And they are at 162 Ocean Avenue in Lindenhurst, New York, 631-957-5106. And the website is liholidaylighting.com. And here I am, all by my lonesome. I have to carry the show all by myself. But that's life. So welcome tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show. And welcome to everybody on the chat board. I see we have a new person on, Mark Andre Moses from, I believe he's reporting 55 degrees from Quebec. I thought I saw earlier on the board that you were from New Brunswick. Welcome, and glad to have you. You can talk to Tim, who's on also from your part of Canada. And, well, we're seeing some really warm weather. Obviously, we had temperatures today push well up into the 70s. Warm spots got up close to 80 from eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England. And we've got we have two more warm days. The difference is that Saturday is going to come with a rather strong cold front that's going to move on through. And that's going to start a series of changes. We've been talking about the fact that the pattern is realigning, it is changing, and we're losing the ridge in the eastern part of the United States. And I'm going to take you through the process here. A lot of blockiness in the atmosphere. Just that the more important chess piece is out in the Pacific, and we're going to see big changes there in the Pacific. It's going to flip almost to the exact opposite of what it is now, and as a result, the East Coast will flip to the exact opposite of what it is right now. We've got severe weather risk coming up also for eastern PA to southern New England, and actually going from northern Virginia all the way up into central New England on Saturday, where the Storm Prediction Center is talking about severe weather risk as that cold front comes through. And we will, of course, get into it when the time comes on the map. So let me just get rid of me. Okay, hang on a second. I have to find my other window here. There we go. So let's do that. And bring this up. We'll have the satellite view up on the screen here. And you can see, I got to recenter it. Nope, that's the tropics. Okay, well, while we have it up here, let's look at the tropics really fast, because there really isn't a whole lot happening. It seems as if the Atlantic is shut down for the time being. So it'll be interesting to see if that is it, because there is a correlation. It's a weak correlation, but there is a little bit of a correlation between when hurricane seasons shut down early on the Atlantic side. It is telling you that maybe the wintertime pattern may be setting up a little earlier. And we mentioned a couple of times in terms of the long range, with this blocky pattern, if the Pacific makes the changes that we see, that maybe this will wind up being a front-loaded winter, front-end loaded winter. Meanwhile, this is disturbed weather that's out in the Atlantic that the Hurricane Center mentions. You'll notice that the clouds are actually going southwest to northeast over a rather long distance from Panama across the Caribbean and then out into the Atlantic forever and ever. And these are strong upper air winds just shearing everything apart. So there's no chance here as far as tropical cyclone development is concerned for the next 5 days. They mentioned it in their outlook, but they're only talking about a 10% chance. Meanwhile, we did manage a fair amount of sunshine today. We still are seeing a little bit of cloud cover. There's a little warm front that's going by in upstate New York, producing a couple of very light showers there. And you can see the high clouds are kind of streaming across upstate New York and New England. Meanwhile, we've got the moisture field that goes back down from the coastal bend of Texas, running up toward the Great Lakes. And this is the next cold front, by the way, that is pushing to the east. Now, there is some tropical moisture here. We have the remnants of Hurricane Pamela that came out of the Pacific, made landfall along the coast of Mexico on the Pacific side. And now it's just the remnant moisture, really. The whole thing's been pretty much absorbed by this frontal boundary, and you can't really find any kind of identifiable feature left with Panama. It's just going on its merry way to the northeast. We've got some activity going on up in the northern Rockies and back up over into the Pacific Northwest. Checking out the radar, you can see those very light showers coming off of Lake Ontario into north central New York. Otherwise, the radar's quiet up and down the eastern seaboard. A couple of light showers off the central coast on the Atlantic side of Florida. They are very light showers. Otherwise, very quiet, even down in Florida and all of the southeast. Had another good-looking day in North Georgia and in the Carolina Mountains. You get that morning low cloudiness, and the clouds hang up along the tops of the mountains and come down to the valleys. It's a very shallow layer. The sun takes the sun about an hour to just burn it right off. And around 9 o'clock this morning, it broke out wide open into sunshine. Meanwhile, we do have some showers, a couple of embedded thunderstorms running from southeastern Michigan across central Indiana. This is radar, by the way, is as of 7:37 p.m. Eastern time. Southern Illinois, southeastern Missouri, and over into Arkansas. Also seeing a little bit of rain here in parts of Nebraska, a little bit of rain. And as you go up further north into parts of Montana and Idaho and some of the higher elevations, seeing a little bit of snow as well, and a little bit of rain shower activity in the Pacific Northwest. Now, with this pattern changing, notice that the western part of the United States, except for the immediate coast of the Pacific Northwest from Northern California northward up toward Washington State, much of the areas in the inland and further east, especially when you go east of the Sierra Nevadas and the Cascades, it's bone dry. Little bit of activity there in parts of Colorado and Wyoming, but that's it. And a little more action in the eastern part of the U.S., although if you look at the coastal plain, looking at a quarter to a half an inch of precip being forecast by the folks at WPC. And this is from this cold front that's coming through on Saturday, because we really don't have anything in the cards for the first half of next week as the new pattern sets itself up. So about a quarter to a half an inch. Even less when you get down to southern Virginia, down into Georgia. You see a large area of no precip being indicated for the next 7 days in parts of northeastern Georgia and western South Carolina. Not much along the Gulf Coast, mostly a quarter to a half an inch. You got a little bit more in southeast Louisiana, a little bit more over southern Florida, and that's that as far as precip is concerned over the next 7 days. SPC tonight. Marginal risk, two small areas of marginal risk, one in Oklahoma, the other one southeastern Missouri, northeastern Arkansas, and northeastward up into central Indiana. Now, for tomorrow, we are going to have a larger area of risk, and this includes an area of slight risk from the same areas in southeast Missouri, northeastern Arkansas, northeastward through Ohio. A slight risk of severe weather. The marginal risk moves up into western New York, probably to about Syracuse, so about I-81 or just west of I-81, the western half of Pennsylvania, the western half of West Virginia, and on over into eastern Kentucky. Now, day 3, Saturday, and Joe and I talked about this last night about whether SPC would do something. They had potential too low. And I thought that maybe they might just stick in a marginal risk of severe weather, and they indeed they did, from northern Virginia all the way up into central and northwestern New England. Now I'm thinking that the main risk from this is probably is going to be wind, strong wind gusts when the thunderstorms go through, because that it is a bit of a sharp cold front, and I don't think this is going to be one that produces tornado risk. And I also, right now, I would be really hesitant that they would go anything much beyond this in terms of a risk zone. To me, this looks like a situation where there'll be some general thunderstorms, and embedded in those general thunderstorms, we could find one or two of them that wind up going briefly severe. So that's for Saturday. And then, of course, after that, we are going to be in a much cooler air mass as the weather pattern is doing its thing and changing. So I thought I'd start off with the Pacific, and I wrote about this today on my subscription weather platform, which is patreon.com/meteorologist Joe Chaffee. I'll put up the link there in case anyone is interested. And I will just pin that up to the top of the conversation. I went in depth on what's going on, and here's a look at the Pacific at the moment. So when we look at the upper air, this is pretty much the opposite of what you would need to see as far as what's happening with the upper flow. If you want a cold or a cooler flow, this is not the pattern that we've been in for the last couple of weeks. Is not conducive to cooler weather. And the reason why, if you look at the Pacific North America Index, the PNA, measuring pressures across North America, both on the Pacific side and on the Atlantic side, right now, we just came off a sharply negative, which means ridge in the east, trough in the west, but that it is starting to kind of do a sawtooth rise toward the neutral line, which in a couple of days meets up to right up to the neutral line, which is the 16th, the way it's marked off on the chart. And then it goes 1 to 1.5 standard deviations positive. So it's telling us that we're going to go from a ridge in the east to a trough in the east, and we're going to go from a trough in the west to a ridge in the west. Now, through all of this, what's been constant is the fact that the North Atlantic oscillation, measuring pressure changes in the North Atlantic, has been negative since about the 23rd of September. And it continues to run negative. And in the long range, which you see in red, and this is based on the 0Z ensembles from last night, the NAO, the North Atlantic Oscillation, is going to run negative, which means we're going to have higher than normal pressures up in the northern latitudes, lower than normal pressures in the mid latitudes. And this is where we have what I usually refer to as either a blocking situation, or in this case, I think it's more of a blocky situation. So we've had this combination here with the NAO negative and the PNA negative, and what's the outcome is the fact that with the PNA wanting to build up that ridge, it's fighting against the NAO, which is trying to push it in the other direction. So we have a ridge position in the eastern United States, but it's not one of these super ridges that goes all the way up and builds right over us, over the Northeast or over the mid-Atlantic states, or one of these big closed upper highs. In fact, in reality, that upper high is anchored down in the Gulf of Mexico. I'm just going to roll it back to yesterday, and you can see it here. Here's the ridge, the upper high, sitting in the Gulf of Mexico, and you've got ridging that goes up into eastern Canada. And meanwhile, all of this is just deep troughing, and it's not just in the west, but it covers northwest Canada. You've got short waves running around in Alaska, and also in the eastern part of Siberia. So this is a really amorphous trough that we have in the western part of the United States. Also, this is being driven by a ridge of high pressure, an upper high, that is sitting north of Hawaii. Now, I'm going to take this off. Whoops, wrong one there. There you go. And I'm going to run this forward, and you're going to watch the ridge in the east breaks down, and that allows this next trough right here. That's going to bring the cold front through. Notice we're starting to see, though, more importantly, we're beginning to see changes here in the Pacific. The upper high north of Hawaii disappears in a very, very short period of time. I started, the first map was at Wednesday, so it's already in the process of weakening. And that's important. We're going to see an upper low, and you see it there over in the Aleutians on Sunday. That's going to drop southward into the Gulf of Alaska. Now, this allows, by the way, the trough that you see in the east, that moves on through with the cold front and brings in a shot of cooler air behind it. Also, you'll notice the flow now is coming from the northwest out of Canada and not from the southwest, which is going to be a cooler flow, not a cold. I wouldn't call it a colder flow yet, but a cooler flow. Remember, before all of this change, if you look at the upper air across Canada, there's no connection. All the cold air is way up in northern Canada. There's no real connection to bring that colder air further south. So this is eventually we're going to see some of that colder air come south, but we're going to have to wait for all the puzzle pieces here to come together. So the ridge of the Pacific disappears, and it's replaced by a trough that low over the Aleutians drops down into the Gulf of Alaska, and now it changes the entire profile of the weather in the eastern part of the United States. This is late next week. You've got a developing upper low over Hudson Bay. There's another trough that's dropping down from the Great Lakes. You've got a flow that's coming out of Canada into the United States. And there's a nice little blocky high there up in northernmost Canada, right along and north of the Arctic Circle. So there's your negative NAO, your negative North Atlantic Oscillation. You've got higher than normal pressures way up in the northern latitudes and lower pressures in the middle latitudes, right in there. Middle latitudes, I would say, from 40 degrees north to 60 degrees north. That 20-degree spread of about 1,200 miles. That's where your upper lows are. And as we move through the forecast period, now this is next weekend, you can see the trough in the east actually deepens a bit as the upper low swings around. And while that pulls out, at least on this latest run, there's your blocking high. These systems here in the Pacific are going to kind of move along and are going to want to drop off the west coast, keeping a ridge building up from the Rockies and into northwestern Canada. So now we're starting to see a little bit more of a connection coming down from further north in Canada. And on it goes, folks. So I mean, it does look to me, I mean, judging from the last number of runs of not only the GFS but the European as well, that we're definitely seeing a big pattern change. I wonder if we look back far enough and go back to when Hurricane Sam was around, and when Sam went up into the Arctic regions, that probably started the whole ball rolling in terms of starting to change the pattern across the northern hemisphere. Just took a little time for it to all play through, but I wonder if we went back and just kind of followed the cyclone, the post-tropical cyclone that Sam became, whether that was the system that started the whole, this whole bowl of wax getting underway. Meanwhile, check out the European today. Same idea here on the European. Your ridge disappears, the Pacific completely changes. The ridge, the upper high that was over Hawaii, you see it there on Wednesday, that disappears. You get an upper low that drops down into the Gulf of Alaska and just kind of sits there. And here we go with your block up in the northern latitudes. Also, it's a little bit further north on the on the European, the blocking high than it is on the GFS, and it extends back over toward northern Greenland. But in the last analysis, we are going to see a cooler weather, and I think we're going to probably wind up with some opportunities down the road for um, weather systems to play through. Maybe, depending on how these upper troughs set up, it might eventually involve something with respect to a system, a non-tropical system in the east, maybe along the east coast. We'll have to see. Still ways away. We'll have to see how these upper lows behave and where all the shortwave troughs wind up being. But we'll deal with that when the time comes. At least you can get the idea that we are seeing this pattern change. So for tonight, very little going on. Obviously, we showed you on the radar and on the satellite. You see a little bit of snow there in western Colorado and on up in western Wyoming and parts of northern Idaho. Very light stuff. And the weather actually fairly quiet in the western half of the United States. Now, here comes the front with the showers and storms for Saturday. We've got a fairly strong southwest flow here. Tomorrow, by the way, we'll probably see temperatures up. I'm thinking upper 70s and low 80s in general, and I wouldn't be surprised to see a few places down in Maryland and Virginia, maybe even reaching up into southern PA and southern New Jersey, getting up to about 83 or 84 or maybe even 85. But the dew points are going to come up a bit. They're not going to be off the wall, but they are going to come up a bit. And there's enough of an upper trough here and enough cold air in the upper atmosphere to set off some thunderstorms during Saturday afternoon. Notice, by the way, they don't really extend much further south than northernmost North Carolina. Everything else dries up when they pass across northernmost Georgia and eastern Tennessee. So the front is going to be active in the mid-Atlantic, and particularly in the northern mid-Atlantic and on up into north central New England. And then the front goes out. Now, on Sunday, because we've got this upper trough nearby, I think we're going to probably see some instability, which means I went for my wording today was for more clouds than sun on Sunday, and the chance that there could even be a few spotty showers, which the GFS actually picks up on pretty well here. And notice, by the way, even going into Monday, the high settles over Tennessee, but it doesn't move offshore yet. It kind of sits over there because the system out to the northeast of Newfoundland is not moving. So we're going to have northwest winds for a couple of days, bringing down some cooler air, and there's probably going to be a little bit of a trough or a little weak front that comes through late on Monday that will give a little bit of a reinforcement of the cool, dry air into Tuesday. And then finally, the high will start to move off the coast on Wednesday. Winds will turn more to the west. So we'll see temperatures rebound a little bit, but here comes the next cold front for Thursday that reaches the coast. The models have been slowing this down over the last couple of days, so we've gone from seeing a front coming through sometime Wednesday night. Now it looks like we're going to have to wait till maybe late Thursday or Friday, early Friday for a front to go by. And then, of course, now we watch more energy that's going to wind up dropping down around the Great Lakes. And the next system here, they kind of lost the system for next weekend, interestingly enough. And now here we go with a low that comes out of, on this run, out of southern Missouri and goes into Ohio and then redevelops there off the Virginia coast in the long range. And yeah, that is blue and snow there that it picks up in the northern lakes and going up into northern New England. If you've got a blocky pattern, one thing I would suggest is the models are going to have a tough time picking out, which shortwave is going to be the right one, or perhaps both of them will do something. This run's backed off on anything happening next weekend. We'll see if it holds to that. And then it's got another stronger shortwave that comes in for the early part of the week of the 25th, which is what you see moving eastward. The thing is, in this blocky pattern with that negative NAO, if anything, if the block winds up being, if that NAO winds up being more negative, you're going to see this getting suppressed more and more to the south. So that's something to bear in mind. You'll notice that the GFS has a low there in eastern North Carolina, and then moves on out to the northeast and deepens it as it moves towards Cape Cod and into the Gulf of Maine. Now, again, this isn't a long range. It's speculative, and I'm not putting a whole lot of stock in it, but it kind of makes sense with the pattern that we're going in that we could see something like this. And then, it's a chilly high for the end of the month if that's the case, because we're still going to be with that the Pacific with the ridge mostly ridging in the west and mostly troughing in the east. So it's this is flipping on roughly the halfway point of the month. So we've had a warmish first half. Now we're going to have a cool autumnish second half of the month with this evolving pattern. I just want to take a look at Saturday. Let's go close up just to see what's going on in the upper atmosphere. I want to take a look at the NAM. We're going to look at the 3-kilometer NAM as far as these thunderstorms are concerned, and you'll notice that it does develop kind of a broken little squall line there, moving across Pennsylvania. This is at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. It's a very, very thin-looking line that stakes down from western Vermont into western New Jersey, and then the southern part of that line weakens. The line part in upstate New York stays a little stronger. Then a few more showers get generated after about 8 or 9 o'clock. The front goes by, and then it's all done. The dynamics here, just to take a look at the. I know Joe likes to look at the FGen. We'll see if it's picking up on anything in terms of omega. And in fact, if you look at this, at least in terms of omega, that's not too shabby looking with this omega running from northern Vermont and New Hampshire right down through New Jersey and across the Delmarva Peninsula. I'm going to go that's up at the 5,000 foot level. Let's jump up another 5,000 feet and go to the 700 millibar or the 10,000 foot level. And even here, it does show a fairly impressive amount of omega. Another thing to look at is probably better if we look at this. I don't know if it's going to show up very well. It's hard to see on this map. It might be better if we use the GFS on this. But one of the things I like to look at when with these weather fronts is to look at the structure of the isobars. Okay, and you'll notice that the isobars have a kind of V shape to them as they along the frontal line, and that's telling you that there's a very, very sharp difference between the weather that's going on one side versus the weather that's going on the other, and that sharp, the sharpness of the front with the way that V shape on the isobars usually means that you've got a front that's going to be supportive of some strong thunderstorms. I don't know how much you're going to be able to get out of this. The NAM doesn't see the NAM has really doesn't really show very much. It's got you look at this, it looks more like rain than anything else. But let me make sure I got the radar view here. I'm sorry, this is the GFS. Let me get the radar. And in fact, this is the radar view. Okay, so this is precip rate. Okay, so that's hang on. Yeah, okay, so this is what it shows on the radar. So you can see it's got some clusters of thunderstorms here that move on by, and then they go on offshore, and then you see those scattered showers in for Sunday afternoon. That's that's relatively chilly air that's coming in behind it. If we look at the anomalies, I think that's probably a good thing to take a look at. Let's see what kind of anomalies we have showing up on the models over the next week to 10 days, and we'll use the I'll use the 2-meter temperature anomaly, and this is for Sunday. Okay, so you've got actually below normal temperatures for Sunday. This is at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, so below normal from New York State, and then more so below normal across the southeast and northern Florida. Monday, is normal to below in upstate New York. So that's kind of telling you that you got this little reinforcement coming down. Tuesday, you start to, if the winds start to turn more westerly, temperatures start to trend a little higher later on Tuesday. So Tuesday and Wednesday, you get a bit of a warm up, and then you got to wait for this next front to come through before it turns cooler again as we get into next weekend and going beyond that. So notice the anomalies here, starting from Sunday the 24th over much of New England down into Virginia. I like to use the 18Z, the 2 o'clock in the afternoon map as the measure, so you don't get, if you use the nighttime maps, 6Z, and even on the 12Z, you're going to see some stuff with regards to the heat island effects and other nonsense that's going on. Might even be better if we use, let's look at the 850. That might be a little bit better to use. And we'll take a look at that. It's a little smoother on the 850 here. So, and by the way, the pattern doesn't mean nonstop below normal temperatures, okay? There will be warm-ups in between as weather systems pull out and new ones move in. This is what we're in right now and have been in this week. Normal to much above normal. I'm sorry, above normal to much above normal all of this past week. And then we start to get into below normal temperatures on Sunday, and Monday starts to pull out. This is Tuesday afternoon. Then it pulls out. We warm up Wednesday and Thursday. Then it turns back closer to normal for Friday, and then you start to see the blockiness really take control with the below normal temperatures in New England and on up into southeastern Canada. And that little warm bubble you see there, you see that warm bubble that comes across Missouri and in the Ohio Valley, that's the low that's going by to our south, and then it runs away out to the northeast and leaves the eastern part of the United States or the last day of the month. And everywhere east of the Mississippi is below to actually much below normal, particularly in the South Atlantic states and down over toward the Gulf Coast. I don't know about you, but I'm kind of looking forward to that. I really am. Be a nice change. So this is good practice from a forecast standpoint for the upcoming winter season. So it's kind of like seeing a blocking pattern early. Get to sharpen my teeth a little bit and get back in the saddle. Joe and I always talked about the fact that when that first snow event of the season is always the toughest one to forecast because you haven't really seen it since back in March or April of last year. So it's been 4 or 5 months that we've seen or had to deal with snow in the forecast. So time to kind of refresh the brain up here. So anyway, just taking a look here at you guys on the chat board. Craig Carlberg relying on his weather app telling him 69 on Sunday. That's probably left over from Saturday night, by the way. I wouldn't be at all surprised if the highs during the daytime on Sunday are much cooler than that. And Monday will probably be a very cool day, maybe only highs upper 50s to low 60s in most places. Let's see. Just kind of running to see if any of you guys have any questions, and I'm not seeing any. Mr. Rayo is not here tonight, Frank Riccio, because he took down his pool today, and apparently it took longer and was quite exhausting a process. So he messaged me about an hour ago saying he was just too darn tired to do the show, and he hadn't even had dinner yet. So I said, sure, no problem. So he will be back on Sunday. And Chuck, I did have a very good day. Thank you very much for asking. I really appreciate it. I hope you had a great day as well. Hey, Ryan, I just remembered I forgot to answer you when you messaged me the other day, and I apologize for that. Do I think the blocking pattern has any staying power? Well, certainly it's been negative since the latter part of September, middle to latter part of September. So it does look like it wants to hang around for a while. I mean, it kind of nudges up toward the neutral line for a short time. And by the way, if we look at the NAO, that was one other thing on there that I just want to point out. So you see where it, on the NAO. Let me bring the map back up so you can see what I'm talking about here. Let me find what I did with it. Let's see if this is it. Nope. Is that it? Move to the top. Let me get rid of me. Ugh. Trying to do all this technical stuff. All right, now I can't seem to bring the map up. So you're gonna have to trust me on this. So on the NAO, there's actually a spike that occurs in about 4 or 5 days that runs up toward the neutral line. And usually in that spiking process, it's telling you that some kind of slow is developing someplace. And then it just kind of peaks out there at the neutral line and then goes negative again. But whenever you see the NAO spike like that, going from a deeply negative value and then running up to neutral in a short period of time, it's telling you that there are big pressure changes are taking place. It's telling you that a low is developing somewhere in the eastern part of the United States to cause that. So the signal there is a strong one. So I think we're going to need to come back to the models over the next couple of days and see how the next 2 weeks change from that respect. Now it's mostly negative toward the end of the month. I know that Dr. Judah Cohen's been talking about the fact that we're getting multiple warm air attacks in the stratosphere with the polar vortex, and that the polar vortex is actually rather weak for this time of year. So if he's right on that, then perhaps yes, we could see the NAO last for a while and stay negative for a while. If you go back and look at the winters of particularly 2010, 2011, which was a mostly front-end loaded winter, the NAO went negative early and stayed negative. 2009-10 also went negative early. I mean, both those winters were kind of front-end loaded winters. So I think you have certainly support with what's going on right now in the stratosphere if the polar vortex remains in a somewhat weakened state, unless it suddenly decides to start strengthening. We could see this NAO kind of last for quite a while. See the whole truth. That's a very nice thing to say. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I'm hoping that you're talking about me. It's always nice to hear someone you can trust as to be trusted when so many demanding it nowadays. Thank you. Well, you know what? I'm not perfect. I don't always get it right, but I do call it honestly and without hype. And Joe does too. So, and then we will of course continue to always do that. William Hoover, the winter could be like the perfect storm with high heating. Well, you know something, Bill, it's funny you mentioned that because I was thinking along those lines. You do have this, you do have a lot of things going on right now in markets that would, with everything that's happened since the beginning of the pandemic, this is a new test that we would have if we have this sort of, combination of a very cold start to the front end loaded winter in the United North America and in Europe, because even though prices, for example, natural gas prices have doubled in the last 6 months, and they're not reflecting what could happen if we wind up having a front end loaded winter, because there is a shortage of supply. And that shortage is not going to go away. It's not going to go away. There's huge energy demand worldwide and not enough energy to cover it. So you could see natural gas prices go up another 50% or more if we suddenly go into a cold pattern particularly in the eastern part of the United States, which is a very very high and the Northeast, and which is a high area user of natural gas. And of course, in Europe, natural gas is a big deal. So yeah, heating bills are going to be off the wall. Gasoline's in short supply. Yeah, it's another test. I'll put it that way. It wouldn't be a shocker if we do wind up with it happening with everything else that's going on. I know the conspiracy theorists out there are just will go wild with this, saying that the not only is the weather part, not only is the energy market part of it planned, but the weather part of it is also being manufactured and created. But I won't even go down that particular road. I probably shouldn't have even opened that door to begin with. So see the whole truth. They already put up those costs going up report. Well, yeah, of course. No, because nat gas has gone up. There's no question that it has, and you're going to see it. And you're going to definitely see it in your bills coming up in the next several months. So anyway, I guess I've said what I've had to say. So you're right. No point in conjecture. See the whole truth. I agree. It'll be what it will be. All right. So we'll call it a night here. Thanks for being. It's been I don't get to do solo shows very often. So what I will do is I'm going to see what's going on Saturday. If it looks like it's going to be a crazy, severe weather outbreak, I don't think it will be. But if it does wind up being a little bit more active than advertised, I may just jump on with a liver. But otherwise, we will see you on Sunday morning for the Sunday morning Joe and Joe Weather Show, back to its regular time, which is 11 a.m. Eastern Time. So thank you for everybody for being here. Thank you for the kind words, Norm Roberts. Thank you for the kind words, and David Kors. Thanks. I'm really happy seeing new names on the chat board showing up. That's always good. I know that there's a group of you regulars that are here every day, and I really do appreciate it greatly. I know Joe does. I appreciate it very much that you guys come every day, regardless of whether the weather is active or not. Then, of course, we always wind up with bigger crowds when the weather gets really busy. But I really do appreciate your support and the loyalty. So thank you. Okay. By the way, don't forget, you can always listen to this show as it's on. This show is a podcast, and you can find us on. I don't always put every show. I try to put every show up, but I didn't put up last night's show because of all the technical issues. But this show will go up as a podcast, and you can find them on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher. You name the podcast source, and the Joe and Joe Weather Show is there. So just make a note of that. If you can't make it to the live, or maybe you're exercising, or you're running, or you're riding your Peloton, and you want to listen to the Joe and Joe Weather Show, then having someone, saying some obnoxious exercise, cheesy Peloton phrase to you, you can just listen to the podcast. All right. Have a great night and a great weekend. We will see you on Sunday. Nighty night, everybody.